is a football podcast, man. Meat, football, good. Man, we talk football. We eat burgers.
Welcome back to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. Josh Johnson, Ben Watts in the driver's seat with you. We're talking fantasy football. I'm here with my good buddy, Ben.
Week 8.
How you doing?
Well,
Week 8 at like the last possible second.
Yeah, no, we're recording this one a little bit later than we normally do, but you know what? It's fine.
I don't care.
We do not care about any of this. That is all noise to us. All of it is noise. I don't listen to it.
We did it. It is honestly somewhat intentional. We were waiting for the trade deadline, and we wanted to do this episode with the benefit of the knowledge of who got traded. So now we know who all got moved. We get to talk about it.
So this could be a longer episode.
It could very well be. And, of course, nobody is upset because they love it.
I hope they do. We have a pretty steady view of listeners, so obviously somebody likes somebody out there likes it. Some nut job likes the garbage that we put out.
We've got weekly weenies, week 8 takeaways.
You're darn right we have weekly weenies.
It's Ben's favorite segment of the week.
Because somebody sucks every week.
It's the only thing that can get him excited. And
just tearing someone down.
It brings you
tearing someone
joy.
down who is so much more successful than me in every single aspect of their life, and they have no idea who I am, nor will they ever know who I am. But guess what? I'm going to yell at you.
Fair enough. I mean, that's what fantasy football is, right? It's people who are otherwise irrelevant yelling at successful people.
They do not care about us. The only person who does is Austin Eckler. He cares about fantasy.
That's right. He does. We've also got a full breakdown of the trades from the deadline, so we will dive into each and every one of those and talk about the fantasy implications. Probably a little bit of dynasty in there as well, but why don't we hop into it? Let's just lead things.
Love a little dynasty.
Let's just lead things straight off. We're going to talk about Week 8 here for a second before we get into the trade. So, from the Sunday games, Ben, what did you take away? What stuck with you from Sunday?
My biggest takeaway is that DeAndre Hopkins is back to being a bona fide top 5 wide receiver for fantasy and real life once again. I mean, I don't think many people were saying he was bad, but I know it was tough when you were drafting him because of the suspension, all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's locked and loaded. I don't know who I drop out of my top 5 to put him in, but I know he's in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we dropped our rankings. So we're recording this on Wednesday. We dropped our top 10 at each position for this coming week for Week 9. And I had Hopkins at 3. Granted, they're playing the Seahawks, so that kind of inflates that a little bit. But he is absolutely in there. Plus, Cooper Kupp has an ankle injury that we're not 100% sure about. So Hopkins he is in
I think rest of the
mix.
season, he's top 5. Dude had 14 targets his first game back. He had 13 targets last week. He's getting 10-plus catches a game. He scored this past week. He's not going to have this insane amount of production every single week, but the targets I don't think are going anywhere. So unless he gets hurt, I'm firing up a guy who's getting 15 targets a week, as a top 5 wide receiver, no question.
Yeah, I've got him as my wide receiver 7 rest of season, but
I think I'd have to bump that up.
Yeah, it's just so
going
difficult.
into this past week, I had T. Higgins ahead of him incorrectly. I don't know which of the big 5 I kind of drop out.
Well, why don't we put it
I
to
think
a test
I would
then?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
So, are you taking let's do this. Our top 3, I'm going to guess is mostly secure. It's Cooper Kupp is my 1. My 2 is
I think
Justin
I have Diggs
Jefferson.
at 1 right now.
You have Diggs at 1. Okay. I've got Kupp, Jefferson, Diggs is my top 3.
I think I would go. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I'm lowering a little bit on Jefferson, not a ton. I still got him. I've probably got him at 2 or 3. Yeah, Diggs, Cup, Jefferson. I think I've got him at 4. I'm putting him ahead of Devontae. Yeah, he's ahead of Devontae for me.
Yeah, I mean Jefferson for me. So they've had a bye week already, and he has not scored a touchdown since week 1, and he is currently the.
I mean, he's still
5.
getting like 20 points a week. Like he's
right.
He's a guy that doesn't need to score to be a fantasy stud. So when he scores, you just win that week.
Yeah. So the 3 in some order, it's Cup, Jefferson, Diggs, and then Tyreek Hill's my 4.
Tyreek, yeah. I would put him at yeah, it's hard to put D-Hop over Tyreek, even though I think, yeah, Tyreek at 4. I would put Hopkins at 5, and Devontae Adams drops out of my top 5.
Yeah, I've got Adams and A.J. Brown above Hopkins right now.
Are you leaving it like that, or would you change it?
I think I would leave it. I think
I got to go over A.J. Brown just for the pure security of it.
I mean, it depends on what kind of wide receiver you want. Now, I know Hopkins had a blow-up week, but he's more of the high volume.
He's incredibly safe.
Yeah, he's super safe. He doesn't blow up the way A.J. Brown does, and I feel like A.J. Brown has an element of that Jamar Chase effect where he can just win you a week by himself. He did it for me in a couple of leagues this past week. I mean, he scores 3 touchdowns and you just win.
If we're talking, I mean, Dynasty, A.J. Brown is 3 for me right now.
Yeah.
He's right in behind Jefferson and Chase.
So rest of season, you're taking Hopkins. You're taking him over Amon-Ra. You're taking him over Adams. You're taking him over A.J. Brown. I would prefer Adams and A.J. Brown, but it's kind of picking nits.
We're splitting hairs here. Like, these are, if you have any of these guys, you feel really good about them.
Yeah. My takeaway is, first of all, this year has been maybe one of the weirdest years of fantasy I've ever played.
It's so strange.
It is so odd. And I don't know exactly why.
I'm enjoying it and yet not enjoying it at the same time. Because like it is more fun because it brings a little more intrigue. There's more surprises every single week.
Yeah,
but it's also super frustrating.
Scoring is just down this year. I think prior to this past week was a pretty great week for fantasy in general. But prior to last week, I think I saw a stat that says scoring was down 20% from the year prior.
Because I think the average points per game were like 25 points per game last year, and it's down closer to 20 this year.
Yeah. So it's pretty weird. I mean, it feels like the players that are at the top of their positions haven't been as dominant in years past. Now, Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill have been incredible, and so
they picked up right where they left off, if not better than they were.
Yeah, I think it's the running backs have been super weird, and I think that's probably what it is. Running backs, usually you can count on them, especially in half PPR, which we play
barring
the majority.
Injury.
Yeah, the majority of our leagues are half PPR. And so in those leagues, traditionally, running backs are dominant. So you need to have multiple dominant running backs. And, I mean, this year, the running back 1 is Nick Chubb. The running back 2 is Austin Eckler.
Eckler doesn't surprise me. Chubb does.
Chubb is very surprising. Eckler is, it's not really surprising. I kind of figured it before the season. But based on where these guys are being drafted, I mean, Christian McCaffrey looks like he will return value on his draft price. He was going as like the RB1 or 2, depending on who you were talking to. Jonathan Taylor has been a complete bust.
The poor fools who took Taylor at 1. And
yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I had no draft spots from the 101 this year, which is crazy. But if I had, I probably would have taken Jonathan Taylor. And that was a bad call.
I did have one draft where I had the 101, and I took Taylor, instead of McCaffrey. That league, I'm still winning the league, though, but it has been weird. Anyway, all of that to say, my takeaway is that those stud running backs from the 2017 draft class, they're the running backs that you want to have this year. 2022 is basically a rehash at running back from 2019. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. You could throw Joe Mixon in there, I guess, and Leonard Fournette.
Austin Eckler.
Yeah, these guys that are dominating are guys that have been around the block a little bit. Now, the new guy, there's a sprinkling of new guys, like Ramondre is in there, Saquon
But it's the new guys that you weren't betting on.
Right.
Like, I feel like everybody wants to be clever, and we're no exception of like, all right, this is the year, like, all right, I'm staying away from Dalvin Cook. I'm staying away from Alvin Kamara. Like, that age cliff is coming. I'm betting on the youth of Jonathan Taylor. I'm betting on the youth of DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams and all those guys. And all of the vets were like, no. We are still elite, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah. It's been super odd, to say the least. I think just you expect, you expect Jonathan Taylor to continue. You expect DeAndre Swift to stay healthy much more than he has. Some of these guys that I think everybody collectively was super high on haven't really returned the way we wanted to. And this is honestly the first year I can remember where if you went zero running back, you went wide receiver heavy in your first few rounds, you're probably doing really well. If you left your draft, with like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, T. Higgins or something.
And that means your running backs are probably guys like Ramondre Stevenson and guys like that. So.
Dameon Pierce, Josh Jacobs, and you're getting top 10 production out of guys.
Top 5 sometimes.
Yeah, that nobody expected to be great. So, I had that experience in one league where it was super flex, so quarterbacks go early, but I ended up with, I think it was Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins. I did take Swift early, but those 3 receivers have kind of been the backbone of that team. That's the reason why I'm winning games, not the running back position, obviously, because Swift hasn't really been playing. So it's been a weird year.
Do you think we kind of... Because I was kind of in the same boat, too. This year, I leaned way more heavily into wide receivers than I do running backs, because normally
I did too.
I go very robust running back. Do we think this continues in the next year? Is the league transitioning enough to where it's wide receivers for fantasy are just as good, if not better, than running backs?
I'm not sure. I think that the running back position goes in phases. I think the 2023 and 2024 draft classes at running back are really, really solid. And so I think you could see an influx of super talented young running backs that end up being
next year's
bell
exciting.
cows. Yeah. So I think it could flip back to where running backs are super dominant, scoring is up, things like that. I think what we've got is the young running backs are either injured, in the case of Javonte, Breece Hall, or it's a combination of they're injured or their offense is just a complete mess, a la DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor. So those are 4 of what a lot of people thought, honestly, were top 8 running backs in the NFL, and they are not returning that right now. So
it's not necessarily their fault. It's just...
Yeah, right. I mean, if it's an injury, like, it's obviously not. It's a fluke, but it's just a little bit different. So all that to say, I think in Dynasty, I think you need to build your Dynasty squads starting at wide receiver and then get your running backs. I don't know if people have been doing that in the past, but I think if you get 2 or 3 good receivers, then you can go trade for those picks or make moves to get running backs.
Running backs are the piece that they win you the championships, but they're the last piece you need to add.
Right. And I think even last year, I was thinking you got to get those running backs set. You want to get 2 really good young ones, 3 great young running backs, and then you can go trade for the receivers. And I think it's the other way around. And if you've got the great receivers, you start there. You get 2 or 3 really good ones in the case of a 1 quarterback league. Then go grab your running backs. Then go grab your tight end. And I think that's sort of the hierarchy for the way it needs to go. If you're building a redraft team, if you want to go, zero running back, I think if you do it correctly, it's a viable draft strategy. But I did not think that 18 months ago. That's something that I didn't even think about trying until like August of this year. I was like, you know what?
Well, it's like it's been so ground in. Like, no, you got to running back, running back, running back, running back, running back.
Yeah. Yeah. And so obviously this year, the known commodities at wide receiver have all returned value. So
yeah,
it's
just
good.
years of playing fantasy that you're having to break the old habits because
Right.
the league's changing, so you got to change with it.
Right. Yeah. Let's hop into the trades.
Oh boy.
Trade number 1, T.J. Hawkinson opened things up on
My boy.
deadline day. The Detroit Lions traded stud tight end Hawkinson and 2 fourth-round picks, one of them a conditional fourth, to division rival Vikings for a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick.
That's pretty good draft capital, I would think. But, I mean, also giving 2 fourths or getting 2 fourths in return, that's pretty good. I don't know. I think it's a good trade. Kind of a lateral move for Hawkinson, fantasy-wise. He was a safety valve for Jared Goff. He's going to be a safety valve in Vikings. Sorry.
Kirk Cousins?
Just kind of spaced out there. Obviously, this doesn't really affect Justin Jefferson, I don't think. Justin Jefferson is going to get his targets no matter who is added to this offense. Unless you're adding Cooper Kupp, I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Probably hurts Thielen a little bit, but at the same time, it's going to open things up for Thielen. Not really worried about Dalvin Cook. So, yeah, it's probably lateral for Hawkinson.
Yeah. I think the only potential, genuine winner out of this trade is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just because...
Absolutely. Holy cow, dude.
Yeah, maybe it's only narratively. I don't know how it will actually translate to real-life football, but at least the narrative is now shifted to where Amon-Ra St. Brown is Jared Goff's safety blanket. He is the funnel for the offense. And I know DeAndre Swift is super important, but he's not a bell cow. And T.J. Hawkinson was getting a pretty large target volume for the tight end position. Now that goes away, and they didn't replace the tight end. I mean, they're literally playing nobodies at tight end rest of season. So it's
you know how
Amon-Ra
much I
St.
like.
Brown.
You know how much I like Hawkinson. He's
Yeah.
a my guy for me.
I
But
also think-
we put out a it's on the Patreon right now, I think, but a buy low of 3 guys, and one of them was Amon-Ra St. Brown. And because of the injury, his value's dipped a little bit, but he's not cheap per se. But if you can get him for a reasonable deal with no Hawkinson, we saw what he did last year. And, I mean, Swift's not 100% either. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is about to be a league winner if he stays healthy the rest of the year.
Yeah, I also think if he plays this year, Jameson Williams could be pretty terrifying as well. It was looking like that offense was going to sort of parse out to where Jameson Williams was only going to be kind of a deep threat just because of the amount of pass catchers that they had. Now Hawkinson leaves and you replace him with, I would imagine, just run blocking tight ends. I don't even know who the guys are that are left. I think his name is Brock Wright or something.
I saw something somewhere that said who it was. I don't remember, and I don't see a big chance where I do remember because they have 2 guys, I think. It's probably going to flip-flop between them, which one has a good week, which one doesn't. So I'm not picking up any of them off the waiver wire. I'm going to leave them there. It's good for Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's really... And for Swift if he ever gets to full health.
Right. The Miami Dolphins pulled a couple moves. First, they acquired Bradley Chubb, and they got Chubb in a 2025 fifth-round pick. So that is way far away. And they sent off the 49ers 2023 first-round pick, their own 24 fourth, and Chase Edmonds. That's a lot.
That's a great deal, though.
That is a phenomenal move. I saw that trade where the 49ers...
Trey Lance?
Yeah, the Trey Lance trade. The 49ers moved up to get him. They sent 3 first-round picks to Miami. Those 3 first-round picks have now turned into, along with some tertiary assets, they have turned into Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, and who's the third one?
Jalen Waddle.
There you go.
They'll do that. Insane.
They'll do that every day of the week.
The Miami front office looks like geniuses right now.
Yeah, and that's not even to mention the Laramie Tunsil trade, where they also got 3 first-round picks.
That's the one that did it, I think.
Is it the Tunsil trade?
Maybe. No, I'm pretty sure it was, because didn't they get 3 firsts from San Francisco for for Trey Lance?
I could have sworn that's what it was, and they traded Tunsil.
I saw
to
something
Houston,
about
right?
it from being Laramie Tunsil, but I think the Laramie Tunsil one, that's the one that kind of started the spiral of draft pick trading.
I don't
for
remember. I do know they got 3 firsts for Trey Lance.
No matter what,
yes,
Miami has done a great job.
Great job. The slept-on part of this was they snuck in Chase Edmonds into the deal. It looked like he was getting phased out of the offense. So it's kind of a salary dump because if you remember, first day of free agency, they paid him like $30 million or something. They got rid of all that. And then to compensate, Mike McDaniel said, let's bring in another 49ers running back to pair with Raheem Mostert. They went and got Jeff Wilson for a 5th rounder.
Yep.
That's a great move. That's a great move. Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson is going from Shanahan's system to Mike McDaniel's system, which is essentially the same system. So,
yeah. The only thing is, obviously, Raheem Mostert has been the starter for them, and he's kind of been a bell cow the past 5 weeks or so. I'm curious to see how quickly or how much Jeff Wilson integrates into that rushing offense. He also could be a pass catcher, so he could be their 3rd down back as well. You know, he's now 1 injury away from being a phenomenal fantasy asset. Because
and usually you can count on a Raheem Mostert injury.
It has been a trend that Raheem Mostert will get a season-ending injury.
If I'm going to bet on one player every single season to get injured, but I can only bet on one, it's going to be Raheem Mostert.
And Rashad Penny.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
So Jeff Wilson, his fantasy value looked like it was headed to the dumpster when the 49ers went and got Christian McCaffrey. Now it has rebounded itself a little bit. He might even have some standalone value with Mostert there as well, but if Mostert gets hurt, obviously he's going to be a 3-down back for the Dolphins, who score a lot of points. So that is really fun.
Yep. Dolphins, I think, are 100% making a wild card this year.
They absolutely are. I mean, their defense is terrible. They need to figure that out. Obviously, Bradley Chubb helps.
I don't understand that move for Denver. I really don't. If you're out of it this year, why are you trading your best defender?
See, I would get it if they had lost in London. I think they would have been 2-6 if they lost. They're 3-5 now because they won. So they're not out of it yet. You've got Russell Wilson that you traded everything for. In my mind, you would still be trying to go all in and make it work.
You're going to lose more games now that you just lost your best pass rusher.
Right. They still do have good pass rushers. So, the defense isn't going to take a massive step back. But in that competitive of a division where you still have a shot, you would want to keep every single bullet that you've got in the chamber. You wouldn't be giving it away. Granted, they got a first-round pick. So that's going to be nice. And
but it's the 49ers' first-round pick, who they should be making the playoffs too.
Right. And they don't have to pay Chubb's salary, which I assume is going to be north of $100 million.
It's going to be a lot.
So there is that. But I don't know. On the Broncos side, it looks like they gambled on Russ and lost, and now they know they lost.
Yeah, Denver Denver's that sad situation. Like they're stuck in the middle right now, and I don't know which way they're going to try to claw into a rebuild or if they're going to try to claw their way back into contention. So we'll see.
The Chicago Bears look like they are believers in Justin Fields. They went and got
I mean, he's looking a lot better.
He is. Prior to this is not actually on here because it's not relevant for fantasy, but they did trade away Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens for a second-round pick. They then traded their own second-round pick, not the Ravens' second, for Chase Claypool from the Steelers. So
I heard that the Packers were very, very close to getting Claypool. They had offered a second-round pick for Claypool too, but since more than likely the Bears' second-round pick is going to be higher, the Bears came in afterwards with their own second-round pick and just essentially stole Claypool right out from under the Packers.
That's incredible.
That's phenomenal.
That is some division rival maneuvering right there.
Because I don't even like Chase Claypool, and a lot of people are grading it as a pretty bad move, honestly, for the Bears. Like, why would you trade your second? You could get a better wide receiver for your second than Claypool, but maybe they were just doing that despite Aaron Rodgers.
Potentially. I don't know that you would get a better receiver with that second. I mean, who knows?
I mean, I don't know.
It's a total crapshoot. You know, in the first round, it's the stud receivers that are somewhat known commodities. The second round is a little bit of a crapshoot. Like, you think about the second-round receivers from this past draft, it's Alec Pierce, it's Wan'Dale Robinson, it's Christian Watson, and I think there was, one or two other guys in there. But,
yeah.
I mean, they're fine, but they're not great.
But, I mean, the second round, too, you've also had incredible receivers go in the second round. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf were all second-round picks.
Yeah. So. You could strike gold for sure. And Claypool was the odd man out in Pittsburgh. Like, I think he's talented. I think one didn't have a quarterback that fit what he does well, and he just...
Pickens had taken his job away, essentially.
Pickens is a stud. That's another one of those second-round receivers. Pickens is a stud. So, he just was odd out. But what I think this does for the Bears is if they decide to take a receiver with their first-round pick next year, let's say they get Jackson Smith and Jigbo, Jordan Addison, you add that to their receiver room that's currently Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Velus Jones, that's not bad. I mean, that's something that Justin Fields can work with.
And Khalil Herbert's a good running back, I think. I don't think Montgomery will be with the team next year, but that's just speculation. Even if he is, they'll have a good running back no matter what. So if they can somehow improve the offensive line in free agency, you're starting to look at a pretty good offense.
Yeah, and their draft picks on defense this past year have panned out what looks like for the most part. I mean, that defense is pretty solid. And
you usually expected solid defense from Chicago.
You do. Granted, they did move Roquan, but he's an off-ball linebacker that they were going to have to pay, and they decided that didn't fit the rebuild timeline, so they moved off.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess we didn't mention this with T.J. Hawkinson, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, you're in a rebuild, you're getting close to where your team is good, but you just can't pay these two guys coming up on contracts. Roquan was going to get paid a lot of money. T.J. Hawkinson is a very good tight end. He was going to be worth a pretty penny, and they're like, you don't fit the system right now.
Yeah, it's positions that are not premium positions. Like, you pay up for quarterbacks, pass rushers, receivers, corners, but like tight end, I mean, they're really nice. Obviously, if you got Kelsey, if you got Mark Andrews, like, yeah, you're going to pay those guys.
And I think Hawkinson really could end up a special player. Like, he's really solid as it is, and you've seen him flash that potential to where he could eventually ascend into that Mark Andrews, Kelsey-esque tier if he can get some consistency.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't fit what the Lions need right now.
Yeah. So with Claypool, I think it probably bumps him a little, but I don't know that it's a ton.
I mean, I think Fields is better than obviously Trubisky or Pickens right now. and he steps into a situation to where by the end of the season he could take over the top pass catching role in that offense.
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential here.
I don't expect any sort of fantasy consistency from him anytime soon, but at least for the time being, it is an improvement.
For sure. I do think that Darnell Mooney's a better receiver right now than Claypool is. But Claypool gives you like that big outside jump ball receiver that can be somewhat of a safety blanket.
He's a freak.
He's nuts. He is nuts. He is currently, though, the wide receiver 42 in standard, 38 in PPR. So is there room for him to be a decent wide receiver 3? I think that's possible.
I can see it.
In the 11th hour, literally 10 minutes before the deadline was up, Nyheim Hines was moved to the Buffalo Bills for Zach Moss and a 2023 sixth-round pick that has the potential to be a fifth. What was the condition on that fifth? Was it like team record?
I don't know.
Cool.
Probably something like that or usage. I don't understand this move. I don't get it. For Buffalo.
Okay.
Like, I guess a fifth-round pick isn't bad for Nyheim Hines. And, I mean, maybe y'all can call me crazy, but they literally already had two of him, like James Cook and Devin Singletary. This is not saying that Nyheim Hines is a bad player at all. He's excellent. Incredible receiving back. But they already had two of him. Like, James Cook is a great receiving back. Devin Singletary is a really good receiving back. Is Nyheim Hines better than them? Probably. But, like, I think they need a hammer in that backfield, and he's just more of the same of what they already had.
See, with Josh Allen being your real RB1, it gets interesting. So I think Hines instantly is better than James Cook at what James Cook was drafted to do. Hines might be the best pass catching back. That's his job. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey,
like
Austin Eckler
fifth,
do it really
I think,
well. But
in the past 3 years, he's fifth in receiving yards and receptions too. I think it's only like CMC, Eckler, Kamara, and I think there's one other guy that I can't think of. Anyway, I know he is fifth in that group, so that's those are pretty big names.
I mean, we talk about J.D. McKissick being a really good pass-catching back. That true, like, he only comes in 2-minute drills, third downs. Like, he's really not a running back. He's kind of a receiver that plays running back. Nyheim Hines is that, but he's better than McKissick, and Buffalo obviously wanted McKissick in the offseason. They offered him a contract, and he declined it. So Hines, he's better than James Cook. It really deflates Devin Singletary's value because I think they view Devin Singletary as their between-the-20s back. Obviously, Josh Allen is really their goal line back, and then Nyheim Hines probably is now their pass-catching back. But I think he is a good enough runner between the tackles that if Singletary were to get hurt, and that's probably where the team views it, if Singletary gets hurt and you need somebody to carry the load in the playoffs, I think you're fine doing that with Nyheim Hines. I don't think you're fine doing that with James Cook right now. And so I felt like they probably wanted to secure the backfield for the stretch run, and they felt like Nyheim Hines was going to do that.
I mean, this is Buffalo essentially. Like, they're fully committing. Like, it's Josh Allen or bust. We're going to throw the ball 50 to 60 times a game. If our running backs as a whole can carry the ball 10, 12 times, get us 50 yards, I think they're ecstatic with that. And they're going to be happy with it.
Yeah, I don't really. So you said you don't understand it from Buffalo's side. I really don't understand it from Indianapolis' side because, I mean, Zach Moss in a sixth, I don't think that's any better. Taylor's hurt, yeah. So they're probably going to start Deion Jackson at running back this Sunday. So,
and it's only Deion Jackson. I guess they have Phillip Lindsay still, right?
Yeah, they got Phillip Lindsay, and they got Zach Moss, but he won't know the playbook. He won't get to play much. So, yeah.
And Zach Moss is no CMC, so it's not like he's going to come right in and have a package on the first game.
He's going to come in and maybe be a healthy scratch, just like he was in Buffalo all year long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess Jonathan Taylor, if he would play, you would feel slightly better about him. But it's been so tough to watch him this year, and the ankle doesn't help things. I don't know that it really matters.
When
for
he
Taylor.
when he does come back and it's officially back, this is better. This is good for him because, I mean, I guess the targets are going to go to him now because he was getting relatively consistent usage in the receiving game. Nothing close to obviously receiving backs, but he's getting 3 targets a game or something like that. So that's pretty good. So if that bumps up to 5 targets a game, I mean, you feel really good about Taylor. It bumps his floor up at least.
Yeah, you're right. I think it does bump his floor. And since he seems to not really have a floor this year, that is helpful.
Some sort of consistency at least, please.
Final trade. Oh boy. Calvin Ridley was
Here we go.
moved to the Jacksonville Jaguars for, and this is, I feel like Zach Galifianakis in that one movie doing the math calculations and looking like a total idiot. The conditional picks in this trade are super conditional.
I think they're both conditional.
So
It's like a conditional 5th and a conditional 2nd.
yes, and they're so conditional that the 2nd can turn into a 5th and the 5th could turn into a 2nd, depending on the conditions that are conditional.
It's so weird. I think, like, obviously he has to play for him next year, and then, like, for the 5th to become a 2nd or something like that, or for the 2024 2nd to not be a 5th, he has to, like, end up signing, like, a long-term deal or something. Like, it's a really weird trade.
Yeah, I think there's a threshold for his extension that he would presumably sign with the Jaguars, and then the pick based on the extension, the amount of snaps that he plays, and team record, those picks would become potentially more valuable. So if he signs a lucrative extension, the team wins X number of games, and Calvin Ridley plays X number of games himself, you could end up having a 24-2nd and a 23-2nd in this deal.
We need that. Because otherwise, this is a really stupid trade. I mean, for real, like, I get the concerns about Calvin Ridley, but if something happens and, like, this ends up being, like, 2/5, like, or I guess it wouldn't be like that because, obviously, if he ends up being good, then you do get 2 seconds.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
It's great for Calvin Ridley's fantasy value because you don't want him on an offense next year with Marcus Mariota, and he has to deal with Kyle Pitts and Drake London. So now he's stepping into a situation with a quarterback that at least we think is ascending in fantasy. He obviously didn't look at this past week, but a quarterback who's still developing. He's got good pass catchers in that offense already. Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, and Ridley has a good chance to take over the 1 spot.
Right. I think he would slot in as the 1 over Christian Kirk, but it gives. I mean, I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. Like, if Ridley is the Ridley that we saw in Atlanta, I guess a year ago now, or it's not really a year ago, it's like 2 years ago.
2 years is when he was really good. We last saw him on the field a year ago.
Right. He was okay, but then he got hurt, so I don't think we really actually saw him before the suspension much. And then he quit. He
bet on a game.
Health issues. That's right. Yeah, it was a whole thing. So obviously,
his mental
Jacksonville,
health issues with underdog.
Right. I think it's a good trade for Jacksonville just because if he is what we think he is, and at worst you paid 2 second-round picks for a wide receiver 1. I mean, in today's NFL, you do that.
It's a great move for Jacksonville, I think.
Yeah, you do that
because now
so
they
fast.
don't need to, like, assuming health, they don't need to add. They can use their first-round pick next year on a different position altogether. Like, they don't need to add offensive weapons anymore. Ridley, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne is a phenomenal core for Trevor Lawrence. So now they can improve the defense, or they can get an offensive lineman, or something else.
And I think the obviously they want to win games. They're in the NFL, but Calvin Ridley won't play any snaps for you this year, which means the team is going to continue to suck. And then next year, when they have their nice, shiny first-round pick,
very high first-round pick.
Yeah, you can go get a great corner because it's probably a top 10 pick. And then, oh, yeah, we have our wide receiver 1 as well because Calvin Ridley comes back. So you're getting – they pre-ordered their wide receiver 1 for next year.
I like it.
All right, let's talk about a couple guys who didn't get traded, talk about what it means. Run us through them, Ben. Give us kind of the lowdown real quick.
Well, we have lamented him many times on this show. Cam Akers looks like he's going to be staying with the LA Rams. I don't know what they're doing with him. Are they going to start rolling him out again? Is he going to be the RB1? Because currently their running back situation and really offense as a whole is horrible. Darrell Henderson apparently can't beat out who's it? Marlon Brown and something Rivers.
Malcolm Brown and Ronnie Rivers.
Ronnie Rivers. And apparently Darrell Henderson is not as good as those guys. So if Cam Akers does end up playing, he should be the RB1, but I've heard stuff that like he's done with the Rams. It's just an ugly situation.
Yeah, it's super weird.
And
murky.
I wish they traded him to Buffalo or I don't know, something.
Somewhere.
I think anywhere else.
There were several teams that reached out and offered trade packages for Akers, or at least Akers was – maybe he wasn't the trade target, but he was part of the return. And the Rams turned him down. So I don't really know what it means. I don't know what it means.
I guess that means they want to use him. If you're turning down trades for him, they have plans for him. You're not just going to cut him.
Yeah, I am – and maybe it's because I have a glass half full approach with Cam Akers because I'm fond of him. But
you've done this for 2 years now.
Yeah. It's very possible that they view him as their primary running back down the stretch run for the season. So, Darrell Henderson hasn't – I mean, you put it pretty simply. Darrell Henderson has not really been exciting at running back. Obviously, Akers hasn't either. But, he's 23 years old. He was a highly touted draft prospect. It's just the Achilles injury, and the offensive line for the Rams has been pretty bad this year. So there's a lot of mitigating factors. I'm not really excited about Akers. Obviously, it's super possible that he does absolutely nothing as a healthy scratch rest of season. But in the other end of the spectrum, he could end up being their primary running back and be, RB3 or something that has maybe some flex value. But it's a weird situation for Akers right now.
And I don't like it. I feel bad for Akers.
I feel bad for Kareem Hunt, too.
Yeah. A fourth-round pick, I feel like, is... If you're a competing team and you want Kareem Hunt, like, that's worth it to me. I really thought he was going to go to the Rams. Because they do not care about draft picks. So, like, all right, here's a fourth-round pick. We'll take Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. They are the classic F them picks team, and apparently...
And now Miami.
Yeah, Miami does not care about their first-round picks. But I wouldn't either, because they're...
I wouldn't if you get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Bradley Chubb for them.
Yeah, that's great. Take them all.
So, Kareem Hunt will be staying. It's annoying. He will not be taking a leap, obviously, unless Nick Chubb goes down, in which case he's an RB1, but that's the same story as every year. Maybe they, I guess they may let him walk in free agency. He is a free agent in this year, right?
Yeah, he is.
So maybe he'll have one more year of value if he walks somewhere. So
Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks. I thought both of them were going to get moved, and neither one.
I was desperately hoping that out of left field the Chargers would trade for one of them.
Honestly, the Chargers, the Packers,
Aaron
the
Rodgers
Giants
got to be pissed right now.
They
didn't even improve the defense. Like, they did nothing.
No, I mean but that's par for the course of this front office.
Yeah,
I mean they just don't make big swings. They are super conservative.
That's why they haven't won a Super Bowl in
Yeah, one
over a
Super Bowl
decade.
in 20.
With Aaron Rodgers, and
some
you
odd
have
years.
one Super Bowl.
That's terrible. Yeah, but since you have Aaron Rodgers, you'd figure, okay, he'll figure it out. He's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. He just won 2 MVPs. He'll be fine. He'll figure out the offense. We just needed to get the defense right. Problem is, he's 38 years old.
When you have
and
no
the receivers
weapons.
are terrible. Unfortunately, Romeo Doubs is not going to cut it. I thought Elijah Moore was going to the Packers. I really did. I thought they were going to make a move for him. He's on his rookie deal. He obviously is not happy in New York, but it was not to be, and that's really depressing. Ben, hit us with the weekly weenies.
It's about that time. If your name's on here, you don't feel good about yourself. You shouldn't feel good about yourself. And you should... We need to get like a situation where we get Denzel Washington in to yell at them like he did in Remember the Titans to really motivate these guys, because you're not doing anything for us, all right?
Oh, brother.
And it starts with you, Daniel Jones. You finally, after all this time, your team's 6-1. You're giving people hope. You past 2 weeks, he's actually done pretty well for fantasy. I started him in a league because Justin Herbert was on a bye. Like, all right, let's get this man in. You know, he's rushing for 100 yards a game. He's straight up a running back. Look, get him in. Get him in as my bye week fill-in. And you scored me 9 points. Daniel, 9 points? It's unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Your name is no longer Danny Dimes. It is Danny Duty. This is an official name change for Daniel Jones. Moving on, we've talked about him a lot. Not a ton to say here. Jonathan Taylor, you keep crapping the bed over and over and over, and I don't fully blame you. Your offense is an absolute dumpster fire. You have no quarterback. Your offensive line is not opening things up for you. There's no receivers outside of Michael Pittman to open up anything downfield. But you still land on the weekly weenies. I'm sorry. I love you, but you suck. Moving on.
But you suck.
You suck. Devontae Adams. I'll give him a little bit of a pass. You had the flu. But if you're coming out there and you're playing a game, I expect better than 0.7. All right? He had one catch for like 5 yards and -1 yards rushing. That is unacceptable. I don't care if you had Ebola. 0.7 is unacceptable. That is it's truly. Moving on.
The real criminal here is it's Derek Carr. He had 100 yards passing.
Derek. Let's talk about Derek Carr here on the Weekly Weenies. Did he? I don't even know where to start with Derek Carr. Did he throw a pick, or did he only have 100 yards?
Well, he got benched. He sucked. They got shut out.
Benched. He got pulled. You know how bad you got to pull? Like God. Derek, you are trash.
He scored 1 fantasy point. A single 1.9 in 5 point. Well, it didn't matter because he didn't throw a touchdown. He had... Get yourself ready for this, Ben. This is a gem of a stat line. 15 for 26. Okay. 101 yards and a pick. Great stuff, Derek Carr.
1.94 fantasy points. Jared, you suck. End of story. Mark
Fantasy
Andrews.
Brothers approve.
This is 2 weeks in a row from Mark Andrews making the Weekly Weenies. If I told you that before the season that Mark Andrews would even be on this list at all, let alone 2 weeks in a row, would you have believed me? No. Mark, get it together. I'm not going to be too hard on Mark. Tyler Higbee, I will be hard on him because, and I guess let's wrap this into 2 players, because in one of my main dynasty leagues, I'm putting Kyle Pitts on this list. And not because he had a bad week, but because he's had such a horrible season that in one of my main dynasty leagues, I finally broke down. I'm like, screw it. I'm not starting Kyle Pitts. I'm going to start Tyler Higbee. And Kyle Pitts has freaking like 17 points on my bench from tight end. And Tyler Higbee dropped like a walk-in touchdown. from a long distance. So
That would have been a 50-yard house call.
So Tyler Higbee instead gets me 2 points while I watch my boy Kyle Pitts absolutely dominating on the bench, and I came very close to throwing myself into an active volcano. So it was not a good week for fantasy for
Which one were you thinking about
me.
hopping into? Were you going to go Mount St. Helens, Vesuvius again?
Any volcano really will do.
Okay.
I'm not super picky.
As long as there's lava.
And we'll finish it off. He had a very good week for fantasy next year. Calvin Ridley, you're still on the weekly weenies for 2022.
Oh, our friendly neighborhood Calvin Ridley sighting. You want to know?
I think that's it.
The greatest fun fact ever.
That we're as good as Calvin Ridley this year.
Yes, there's that. We have scored just as many fantasy points as Calvin Ridley. But you know which team he was betting on when he got suspended for betting on the Falcons? But guess which game it was that he was betting?
Oh, I don't know which game it was.
He was betting on the Falcons to beat the Jaguars.
Oh, no.
And Roger Goodell said, "Ooh, I see a storyline unfolding before our very eyes." And he gets traded to Jaguars. I'm sure Urban Meyer would have been so excited.
Thank God Urban's not here anymore.
That'll do it for this one. Is there any breaking news? Anything happening while we've recorded this?
I saw Josh Palmer earlier today said Josh Palmer's status has been changed from questionable to healthy. And I just got a notification that his status has again been changed from healthy to questionable. So that's fun.
Well, if Josh Palmer does play,
I am starting Josh Palmer in multiple leagues. He's like one of the top waiver ads this week.
Yeah, Josh Palmer could be very, very solid because of no Mike Williams. And honestly, it's very possible Keenan Allen
he's playing Atlanta.
Oh,
and we just saw P.J. Walker shred the Atlanta defense. So,
you know what's crazy is I have not started DJ Moore all year at all. I started him Sunday, and then I'm probably going to start him again in 2 weeks when they play Atlanta a second time.
Oh, I would. From here on out, you can start anybody against Atlanta.
They don't have A.J. Terrell, and beyond him, there's literal garbage.
A.J. Terrell been getting cooked before he got hurt anyway.
He is your least favorite good player in the NFL.
He's a great player, and I was so mad when they drafted him because I wanted a pass rusher, and I think we could have either gotten him in the second or traded up to get him in the second. No, we took him in the first and granted, at the time, Caleb Von Chason was a really good prospect, and I'm like, we need to go get him for sure because we didn't have a pass rusher at all outside of Grady Jarrett. So, now we spent our first round pick on him.
Turned out pretty good.
And guys like CeeDee Lamb were sitting on the board. I'm like, let's go get CeeDee. Why not?
That'll do it for this one. If you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon. Find us on Instagram at FantasyBrothers_. We will see you later this week. We'll be previewing Week 9. Have a good one. Bye.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. If you enjoyed the episode and want to connect to us, follow us on Instagram at FantasyBrothers_ or on Twitter at FantasyBros_. If you want to support the show, you can do that at Patreon /FantasyBrothers.